Joe Biden took aim at Donald Trump during a feisty campaign rally in Michigan. The US president remarked on the media's close scrutiny in recent days after numerous fumbles, but drew parallels to when the Republican candidate mixed up the name of the former US House Speaker.
I had 32 members mostly from Europe, but 32 members of NATO in Washington. And by the way, and the press has covered this, they give me credit for strengthening NATO, expanding NATO, making it what it is. But look, this is deadly earnest. When that butcher Putin, who I know have known for a long time, when he invaded Ukraine, here's what Trump said. I'm not making this up either. He called him a genius and said it was wonderful. What in the hell is going on? But people would rather talk about how I mix up names. I guess they don't remember that Trump called Nikki Haley Nancy Pelosi.
And for more on the US election, I'm joined by Dennis Altman, Vice Chancellor's Fellow at La Trobe University and an expert in US politics. Dennis, thank you for joining me. If Joe Biden remains in this race, can the Democrats win?
I think the question was, can the Democrats win? And look, I think even before that disastrous debate, the polls were suggesting that Biden was not doing particularly well. Once you've had the debate, the fallout from the debate, the growing number of Democrats saying we are not comfortable with him going ahead, I think it is almost inconceivable that, barring some quite unpredictable events, such as, for example, a major health scare for Donald Trump, I think it's quite unbelievable to imagine that Joe Biden can be re-elected.
At least 3 more House Democrats have called on the president to withdraw from the race since yesterday's news conference. What options does the party have at this stage?
Well, I think they essentially have 2 options. The party is committed to Joe Biden. This is the problem. In the primaries, none of the potential presidents ran against Biden for the nomination, which means that when the Democrats meet in August, the great majority of candidates are pledged to Joe Biden. And this is why people like Nancy Pelosi are saying it's Biden's choice. I mean, if Biden really is determined, he can insist on the nomination. The option for Democrats is, of course, to keep the pressure on him to a point where he comes to recognise this is not on. And I think that the really interesting discussions are the ones that we don't know about. The people who are talking privately to Biden, and also, I think, privately to Jill Biden, because it appears that Jill Biden is pushing him very, very hard to stay in the race. Quite frankly, I don't understand it. I would have thought that as a caring wife, she would be pushing him to stand down, because it's perfectly clear that his health is not up to another 4 years of it.
Is there any way they can replace him if he doesn't quit?
It would mean an extraordinary public battle on the floor of the Democratic Convention. As I say, most of the delegates are pledged to him. Now, yes, they could say there are exceptional circumstances. We are not going to follow the instructions we were given in our primaries. The world has changed. Were it to play out like that, it's hard to see it helping the Democrats. So I think that, again, what they are all hoping for is that Biden himself stands down. And at this stage, I think it's 50-50. We just don't know what people like Nancy Pelosi, Barack Obama, the senior people in Congress who are being very careful what they say on camera, we just don't know what sort of pressure they're putting on him. I have no doubt that privately, almost all of them would love him to stand down. But At the same time, I've no doubt they don't want a public fight on the convention floor, which would, of course, be exactly what Donald Trump would want.
If Kamala Harris were to replace him as the presidential candidate, do you think she would have a much better chance of winning?
If she were to come in and were the unanimous choice, I think she would have a far better choice. And that's for a couple of reasons. One is Kamala Harris would come in with this wonderful combination of being both the incumbent and the newcomer. All the media attention would suddenly switch to her. Rather than talking about Donald Trump or about Joe Biden's frailties, suddenly there'd be massive interest in who is Kamala Harris. She is now the presumptive president of the United States. But the other thing that's important about Kamala Harris is that for some years now, it's been clear that there is a slow erosion of support for Biden among certain groups that were very strongly in support of him in 2020. Young Americans, Black Americans, Hispanic Americans. And I think they are precisely the people Kamala Harris could re-energize, along with the fact that Kamala Harris has been the spokesperson for the administration on the vexed issue of abortion, which is one that plays very well for the Democrats after the Supreme Court removed the right to abortion. So I think for all those reasons, Kamala Harris would, in a sense, be the dream candidate for the Democrats.